Hey guys, this is Yaqeen, and if you're new here, I'm a psychotherapist currently doing my PhD in clinical psychology here in Istanbul, Turkey. So please do like, subscribe, and for the notifications, please press the bell icon. One of the questions that I'm often asked on the social media is that how do I know if I should go for therapy? I mean, yeah, all of us do feel down or we might be going through a lot, but does that mean that I have to be in therapy? Before answering these questions, let's talk a bit about what really therapy is. Therapy is a short form for psychotherapy, which is also known as talk therapy. And by the way, just talking to somebody is definitely not therapy. And your friend cannot be your therapist. And your therapist is certainly not your friend. It's a professional, it's an intimate yet a very professional relationship. So therapy is more like a non-judgmental space where you can vent your emotions and know more about yourself and develop problem solving skills to deal with the problems that you might be going through in your life. Now, there are many types of therapy, and you can ask your therapist what type of a therapy modality do they specialize in. So, for instance, I use cognitive behavioral therapy, emotion focused therapy with an experiential approach, as well as a bit of existential psychotherapy. There is this misconception that psychotherapy is only for the people who have certain mental health conditions or who might be really severely ill. I mean, this cannot be far from the truth. Psychotherapy is actually for everybody potentially, meaning to say that it can be for people who are going through a lot at a certain point of time. It can be that somebody is in stress or feeling intense emotions, or some sort of a life event happened, or it can be transitions of life, or simply to improve the quality of life, one can opt for therapy. Now, I understand that it might seem a bit confusing, right? All of these things. So I just try to simplify it in 10 different ways or 10 different prompts, which can be helpful in knowing that if somebody needs therapy. So here are 10 signs to know if you should be seeing a therapist. Number one, your functioning has diminished. Therapists are concerned about functionality in terms of daily life functioning of a human being. So, if anything that you went through in your life has affected your performance, it has affected the quality of your life to the extent that you spend a lot of time thinking about it, and it is affecting your goals, your ambitions, your school, your work life, and your lifestyle has taken a hit. If that is the case, and then you find it really hard perhaps to get out of the bed, to take a shower, to do daily life things, and those activities seem to be too much. And if that is the case, that would be a reason to see a therapist. Number two, you have problems with emotional regulation. Now, one of the things that can sometimes happen because of negative life events is that we start feeling emotions more intensely than we should. So, for instance, crying without reason, or being angry without a reason, or anger that is really disproportionate when it comes to the actual trigger of that anger. So, this irritability, or always having that feeling of being on the edge, it can be a manifested symptom of depression or trauma, so which always does not manifest as sadness as we tend to believe. So there can be that underlying depression, and it can manifest in the form of anger or uncontrolled crying. That's why therapy is a place where you can find that trust. It's a safe space, it's a trusting place where you can explore that part of yourself which might need assistance. Number three, you are no longer enjoying the activities that you once used to. This is also known as anhedonia. So, for instance, if you are somebody whose hobbies were about drawing, painting, going out, or going for a camp, or meeting other people, going on a date, going for coffee, going to the cinema, and you are no longer interested in those activities that really made you who you are, or sort of gave you that sense of being alive, and it's no longer there, and you're avoiding these activities. So that might be another prompt that tells you that you might seek the assistance of a therapist. Number four, you are grieving. I mean, in the period of COVID, all of us have lost at least a single dear one, every single family. It could be that, or it could be a divorce, perhaps, maybe a breakup, or maybe loss of somebody that was dear to you, or it could be loss of a pet that is really making you feel sad. So, therapy is that safe and compassionate space where you can process this loss and these distressing emotions. Number five, you want to change, you want to improve, but you don't know where to start. All of us do hit a rough patch in some part of our life, and we have this feeling that something needs to change and I want to improve, but we are just stuck or we are lost and we don't know where to head and we don't know what to do, where to start. So that might be a good prompt or a reason to start therapy. Number six, your sleep and appetite has changed. Now, one of the symptoms of depression or anxiety or many other mental health conditions is actually changes in eating and sleep patterns. Sleep is something which is really essential and necessary. So if you find yourself, in the middle of the night and you find it really hard to sleep, or you're awake all the night and sleep only during the day, now that can be a warning signal. Or eating too much, or not having the mood to eat, eating too less, or forgetting to eat, for instance. So if there are major changes in your sleep and in your eating patterns, and this has recently happened due to some life event, that might be another reason for seeing a therapist. Number seven, physical body changes. We often think that mental health and physical health are two different things, but actually mental health conditions and problems do have biological bases. So a lot of the times the signs of depression and anxiety, they actually manifest as headaches or fatigue, or you feel tired all the time and you don't have that energy to do any kind of activity that you want to enjoy, perhaps, and you have this stiffness of the muscles or perhaps muscle pain, because mental health conditions can actually make the immune system weaker and can also affect the reactivity of the cardiovascular systems. So if you do find changes in your physical body as these, it might be a reason that it has something to do more with your psychological health than the physical one. Number eight, wrong coping mechanisms. Whenever we are sad or we hit a rough patch, as we discussed, many of us tend to involve ourselves in coping mechanisms that are bad. So for instance, smoking, and those people who are smoking, increasing the number of cigarette intake per day, or too much of alcohol, for instance, or sex as a coping mechanism. So these can be very maladaptive. So one of the things that therapy aims for is to create adaptive mechanisms to cope up with our life problems. So if you're using any of the negative coping mechanisms or maladaptive coping mechanisms, one of the reasons for therapy might be replacing those with more positive coping mechanisms, as we do in cognitive behavioral therapy. Number nine, you do not want to socialize. One of the things that really keeps us alive, because we are, as humans, very social. So if you feel like you don't want to go out or seeing other people, be it your friends, parts of the family, or seeing maybe your teacher or your supervisor or your coworker, and it seems like a lot of burden that you don't want to go out of the bed. You want everything to happen within that space of your room, and you don't want to go out and interact with people, or it seems to take too much energy of you, and that you have isolated yourself and you love that isolation because you don't want to relate to anybody else outside of your room. So that sort of a social isolation might be another reason to see a therapist. Number 10, nothing else has worked. I mean, this is one of those things which can be intuitive. Like, we hit a rough patch and we try all of these different things, right? We want to reach out to our friends, we want to do other things, take advice of other people. But if you have tried those things and nothing has worked, this might be a good prompt to seek an appointment with a therapist and try to figure out the mechanisms that might be underlying your problems, which also gives you more insights into your own self and into your own reality, so to say. So thank you so much, guys. That's all for today's video. And if you find the content beneficial, please do share it with others, as well as leave your comments below. I'll be looking forward to reading those.